Once upon a time in the magnificent kingdom of Celestria, there lived a princess named Amelia. Now you might be expecting me to describe a delicate, thin princess with flowing golden hair, but Princess Amelia was different. She was beautiful in her own unique way, with rosy cheeks, curly brown hair that bounced when she walked, and a contagious laugh that could light up any room. But Amelia was also bigger than the other princesses in neighboring kingdoms, and this made her life incredibly difficult. Every morning, Princess Amelia would wake up in her enormous bedroom, surrounded by golden mirrors. But unlike most princesses who loved looking at their reflections, Amelia dreaded it. The royal dressmakers would come in with their tape measures and whisper to each other, shaking their heads as they tried to fit her into the latest fashions. "Perhaps if your highness ate less cake," one would mutter. "The princess really should take more walks in the garden," another would add. Amelia heard it all. Every single word. Her mother, Queen Eleanor, meant well, but made things worse. "Darling, you must think about your future," she'd say during breakfast, watching Amelia's every bite. "Princes from neighboring kingdoms will be visiting soon. We need you to look presentable." The word presentable stung like a bee. What Amelia heard was, "You're not good enough as you are." Despite all this, Princess Amelia had a kind heart and a brilliant mind. She loved reading books about engineering, science, and how things worked, while other princesses practiced their curtsies and learned to paint delicate watercolors. Amelia secretly read books about inventions and machines. "That's not proper princess behavior," her etiquette teacher, Lady Constance, would scold whenever she caught Amelia with a technical manual instead of a poetry book. But Amelia couldn't help it. She was fascinated by how pulleys worked, how engines ran, how simple machines made impossible tasks possible. In her heart she felt trapped in a castle, trapped in a role, trapped in expectations she could never meet. One sunny afternoon, the king and queen made an announcement that filled Amelia with dread. "We're hosting a grand ball next month," King Theodore declared. "Princes from 5 kingdoms will attend. It's time for you to choose a suitor, Amelia." Amelia's heart sank. She had met these princes before at various royal gatherings. They were all the same, polite on the surface, but their eyes would glaze over when they looked at her. They'd dance with her out of obligation, then quickly move on to her thinner cousins. "I don't want to marry someone who only cares about appearances," Amelia protested. "Love will come later, dear," her mother said dismissively. Marriage is about alliance and duty, but Amelia wanted more. She wanted someone to see her, not her crown, not her dress size, not her royal title, just her. 3 weeks before the dreaded ball, Amelia couldn't take it anymore. She needed to escape, even if just for an afternoon. She convinced her reluctant handmaiden, Sophie, to help her sneak out of the palace. "This is a terrible idea, Your Highness," Sophie whispered as they crept through the servants' corridors. "The worst ideas are often the most necessary," Amelia replied with a mischievous grin. They made it to the royal garage where several carriages were kept. Amelia chose the smallest, least fancy one, a simple enclosed carriage that wouldn't draw attention. She had convinced the stable boy to teach her how to drive it months ago, another unprincess-like skill. As the carriage rolled out of the palace gates, Amelia felt free for the first time in years. She drove through the cobblestone streets of the capital city, waving at surprised townspeople, then headed toward the countryside where wildflowers bloomed and the air smelled fresh and sweet. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. About 5 miles outside the city, the carriage began making a horrible grinding noise. Black smoke started pouring from underneath. Amelia pulled over to the side of the dirt road, panic rising in her chest. "No, no, no!" she exclaimed, climbing down from the driver's seat. She lifted her fancy dress and crouched down to look underneath the carriage, but she couldn't figure out what was wrong. She was stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no guards, no servants, and no idea what to do. For the first time, her love of reading about machines wasn't enough. She needed someone who actually knew how to fix them. Just when Amelia was considering walking back to the city, in completely impractical shoes, she heard a cheerful whistling coming down the road. A young man appeared, pushing a cart loaded with tools and metal parts. He was about her age, maybe 20, with messy dark hair, grease-stained clothes, and the most genuine smile Amelia had ever seen. He wasn't handsome in the way the princes were handsome, all polished and perfect. He was real. His hands were calloused from work, there was a smudge of oil on his cheek, and his clothes were patched in several places. "Looks like you're having some trouble there," he said, his brown eyes twinkling with amusement. Amelia straightened up quickly, suddenly self-conscious. "My carriage broke down. I don't suppose you know anything about fixing them." The young man laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "Know anything about fixing them? Miss, I'm Finn, the best mechanic in 3 counties. Well, that's what I tell myself anyway. Let me take a look." He set down his cart and crawled under the carriage without hesitation, not even asking for permission. Amelia was shocked. Nobody just did things around her. Everyone always asked permission, bowed, waited for commands. "Ah, here's your problem," Finn called out from underneath. "Your drive shaft is completely worn out, and your wheel bearing is shot. You're lucky the whole wheel didn't fall off. Can you fix it?" Amelia asked hopefully. Finn rolled out from under the carriage, his face even more smudged with grease. "I can, but it'll take a few hours. I'll need to get some parts from my workshop. It's about a mile up the road. You're welcome to wait there. My grandmother makes the best apple cider in the kingdom." Amelia had never been in a mechanic's workshop before. Finn's shop was attached to a cozy cottage with a neat garden, where his grandmother grew vegetables and herbs. The workshop itself was cramped but organized, with tools hanging on every wall and the smell of oil and metal in the air. "Gran," Finn called out. "We have a guest who needs some cider and a place to sit while I fix her carriage." An elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair came out, wiping her hands on her apron. "Well, bring the young lady in then. Any friend of Finn's is welcome here." Amelia realized Finn didn't recognize her. She wasn't wearing her crown, and her dress, while nice, wasn't her usual royal attire. For the first time in her life, someone was treating her like a normal person. She introduced herself as Amy and spent the afternoon in the workshop, watching Finn work. He explained everything he was doing, answered all her questions about how machines worked, and never once made her feel stupid for asking. "Most people don't care about this stuff," Finn said as he replaced the drive shaft. "They just want their carriages to work. But you actually want to understand why they work. That's rare. I've always been fascinated by how things work," Amelia admitted. "But people tell me it's not appropriate for someone like me." Finn looked up from his work, genuinely confused. "Not appropriate? That's ridiculous. Curiosity is the best quality a person can have. Anyone who tells you otherwise is just afraid you'll get smarter than them." Those words struck Amelia deeply. No one had ever encouraged her interests before. Everyone had always tried to make her fit into a mold she was never meant for. By the time Finn finished repairing the carriage, the sun was beginning to set. Amelia knew she needed to get back to the palace before her absence caused a royal panic. "How much do I owe you?" she asked, reaching for the small purse she'd brought. Finn waved his hand dismissively. "For a first-time customer with such great questions, Consider it a free repair, but if you break down again I'll have to charge you double, he added with a wink. Amelia laughed. Deal. Thank you, Finn. This has been the best afternoon I've had in a long time. You're welcome back anytime. Amy, it's not often I get to work with someone who actually appreciates the craft. As Amelia drove away, she couldn't stop smiling. She kept looking back at the workshop until it disappeared from view. Over the next 2 weeks, Amelia found excuses to sneak out of the palace. Sometimes she'd claim she needed to check on the royal stables. Other times she'd say she was visiting the town orphanage, which she actually did. Amelia had a genuine kind heart, but her real destination was always Finn's workshop. She'd arrive with questions about machines, and Finn would light up with excitement, showing her everything from simple levers to complex engine systems. He taught her how to use tools, how to diagnose problems, and how to think like an inventor. You're a natural at this, Finn said one afternoon, as Amelia successfully repaired a broken clock mechanism. You sure you don't want to give up whatever fancy life you have and become a mechanic? Amelia's smile faltered for just a moment. She still hadn't told Finn who she really was. Every day the lie got harder to maintain, but she was terrified of how he'd react. Would he treat her differently? Would he bow and scrape like everyone else? Would he stop being her friend? But their relationship was becoming more than friendship, and Amelia knew it. The way Finn looked at her when she successfully fixed something, the way he saved her half of his lunch without being asked, the way he listened to her thoughts about everything from philosophy to politics, treating her opinions as valuable and worthwhile. One rainy afternoon, when Amelia arrived at the workshop soaking wet, Finn immediately wrapped a warm blanket around her shoulders. You're going to catch a cold, Amy, he scolded gently. No machine is worth getting sick over. I wasn't coming for the machines, Amelia said quietly. Finn looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment, something shifted between them. The air felt charged, electric. Amy, I need to tell you something, Finn began, his usual confidence wavering. These past few weeks have been incredible. You're not like anyone I've ever met. You're smart, curious, kind, and you see beauty in things other people overlook. I know we come from different worlds. You're clearly from some wealthy family in the city and I'm just a mechanic. But I can't help how I feel about you. Amelia's heart was racing. How do you feel about me? I think I'm falling in love with you, Finn said simply. And before you say anything, I know what you're probably thinking. You're worried about what people will say, about the differences between us. But Amy, when I look at you, I don't see any of that. I just see someone who makes me want to be better, who challenges me, who makes every day brighter. You're beautiful, inside and out. Tears filled Amelia's eyes. In her entire life, no one had ever called her beautiful and meant it the way Finn did. He wasn't talking about her appearance meeting some standard. He was talking about her, all of her. I feel the same way, she whispered. But Finn, there's something I need to tell you. Something important about who I really am. Before Amelia could continue, the workshop door burst open. Standing there soaking wet and furious was the captain of the Royal Guard, along with Sophie and 4 other guards. Your Highness, the captain exclaimed. Thank the stars we found you. The entire kingdom has been searching. Finn's face went pale. Your Highness? He repeated, looking at Amelia in shock. Finn, I can explain, Amelia started, but the captain was already ushering her toward a royal carriage. We must return to the palace immediately. Your parents are beside themselves with worry. As the guards escorted her out, Amelia looked back at Finn, who stood frozen in the workshop doorway, his expression a mixture of shock, confusion, and hurt. I'm sorry, she called out. I'm so sorry. But she was already being pushed into the carriage, and the door slammed shut before she could say anything more. Back at the palace, Amelia faced the worst lecture of her life. Her parents were furious, not just about her sneaking out, but about where she'd been and who she'd been with. A mechanic? Queen Eleanor practically shrieked. You've been spending time with a common mechanic? He's not common, Amelia shot back. He's brilliant and kind, and he treats me like a real person, not a piece of royal property. Watch your tongue, young lady, King Theodore warned. Do you have any idea what kind of scandal this could cause? The ball is in 3 days. Princes are arriving tomorrow. I don't care about the ball. I don't care about those princes who look through me like I'm invisible. Amelia's voice cracked. For the first time in my life, someone saw me. Really saw me. And it wasn't because I'm a princess. He didn't even know I was royal. He liked me for me. Her mother's expression softened slightly but remained firm. Amelia, darling, I understand you're at that age where emotions run high, but you must understand your responsibilities. You are a princess. Your marriage will affect the entire kingdom. You cannot throw away your duty for some fleeting infatuation. It's not fleeting, Amelia said quietly, tears streaming down her face. I love him, and I think he loved me too, before I lied to him about everything. Amelia was confined to her chambers for the next 2 days. Guards were posted at her door, and she was only allowed out for royal preparations, dress fittings, hairstyling, and endless coaching on how to behave at the ball. She felt like a prisoner in her own home. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Finn's hurt expression. She had betrayed his trust, lied to him, and now she might never get the chance to explain or apologize. Sophie, who had been forgiven for her role in the escapes, smuggled letters to Amelia from the townspeople who had heard about the princess who visited a mechanic's shop. Most were supportive, sharing their own stories of unexpected love and defying expectations. But there was nothing from Finn. The night of the grand ball arrived. The palace was decorated magnificently, with thousands of candles, flowers from every corner of the kingdom, and musicians playing elegant waltzes. Amelia was dressed in the most elaborate gown she'd ever worn. It was beautiful, but it felt like armor. Her hair was styled perfectly, her crown polished until it gleamed, and her smile was practiced and empty. 5 princes arrived, each from a neighboring kingdom, each more pompous than the last. There was Prince Edmund, who talked only about his hunting achievements. Prince Reginald, who bragged about his kingdom's wealth. Prince Leopold, who barely looked at her before excusing himself to dance with her prettier cousin. Through it all, Amelia felt numb. She danced when required, smiled when expected, and answered questions with perfect princess politeness. But her heart wasn't in it. Her heart was 5 miles down the road in a little workshop that smelled of oil and honest work. Midway through the ball, there was a commotion at the palace entrance. The guards were arguing with someone who was insisting on being let in. I don't care if it's a royal ball. I need to speak with Princess Amelia. Amelia's heart stopped. She knew that voice. She gathered her enormous skirts and ran toward the entrance, pushing past confused guests and shocked servants. And there he was, Finn, cleaned up in his best clothes, which still had a small patch on the elbow, arguing with the palace guards. Finn, she called out. He turned and their eyes met across the crowded entrance hall. The entire ballroom seemed to fall silent. Amy, I mean, Your Highness, Finn stammered, suddenly aware that hundreds of people were staring at him. Amelia didn't care about the audience. She walked straight to him, her chin held high. Finn, I owe you the biggest apology of your life. I lied to you about who I was because I was afraid. Afraid you'd treat me differently. Afraid you'd see me as just a princess instead of a person. But lying to you was wrong, and I'm so sorry. Finn took a deep breath. I was angry at first, he admitted. I felt like everything we shared was based on a lie. But then my grandmother, who's much wiser than I'll ever be, asked me a question. She asked, "Did Amy, the person you fell in love with, change just because you found out she's also a princess?" He stepped closer to Amelia, ignoring the gasps from the crowd and the outraged expressions from the king and queen. And the answer is no. You're still the same person who got excited about drive shafts and wheel bearings. You're still the woman who asked a million questions and actually cared about the answers. You're still the person who made me laugh and made me think and made me feel like the luckiest mechanic in the world. So what if you're also a princess? That's just another interesting fact about the woman I love. Queen Eleanor looked like she might faint. Several princes looked offended, but Amelia felt like her heart might burst with happiness. "I love you too," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I don't care who approves or disapproves. I choose you, Finn, if you'll still have me after I lied to you." "Of course I'll have you," Finn said with his characteristic grin. "But fair warning, you'll probably have to help me fix carriages for the rest of your life." "That sounds perfect," Amelia said. And she kissed him right there in front of the entire kingdom. Of course, things weren't instantly perfect after that dramatic declaration. The king and queen needed time to adjust to the idea. The neighboring princes left in a huff. The royal advisors had emergency meetings about protocols and propriety, but Amelia stood firm. She reminded her parents that their own marriage had been arranged, and asked them if they'd want that life for their daughter, or if they'd want her to have real love. King Theodore, after much thought, finally spoke. "When I was young, before I was king, I wanted to be a scholar. But duty called and I put aside my dreams. I don't want that for you, Amelia. I want you to be happy," Queen Eleanor added. "And I suppose, if he makes you smile like you've been smiling lately, who am I to stand in the way? Though he'll need proper royal training if he's going to be a prince consort." "Actually," Amelia said, "I have a different idea." 6 months later, the kingdom of Celestria had changed in remarkable ways. Princess Amelia had worked with her father to establish the Royal Institute of Technology, a school where anyone, regardless of background, could learn engineering, mechanics, and invention. Finn became the head instructor, teaching students from all walks of life the skills he had learned through years of hands-on work. Amelia studied alongside the students, finally able to pursue her passion openly. The Institute also started a program to improve transportation throughout the kingdom, making travel easier for everyone. Finn's expertise helped design better carriages, improved road systems, and more efficient farming equipment for the kingdom's agricultural regions. Amelia still had royal duties. She attended state functions, represented the kingdom at diplomatic events, and worked on social programs to help those in need. But she did it all as herself, no longer hiding her intelligence or interests to fit someone else's idea of how a princess should be. When Amelia and Finn finally married, it was a celebration unlike any the kingdom had seen. It wasn't just in the palace. The festivities spread throughout the entire capital city, with commoners and nobles celebrating together. Amelia wore a dress she had helped design herself, beautiful but practical, with hidden pockets, because she insisted every woman should have pockets, and a train that could be easily removed for dancing. The wedding wasn't just about two people in love. It represented a kingdom moving forward, breaking down old barriers between classes, and embracing the idea that everyone had value regardless of their birth or appearance. In the years that followed, Princess Amelia and Finn, who became known as the Inventor Prince, even though he insisted he was still just a mechanic at heart, had many adventures. They traveled the kingdom in a carriage of their own design, solving problems and learning about their people's lives. Amelia became known as the People's Princess, not because of how she looked, but because of how she made everyone feel seen and valued, just as Finn had made her feel seen and valued. They had children who were taught that worth comes from character, not appearance, and that the most important thing you can do is be true to yourself while being kind to others. And whenever anyone asked Princess Amelia how she found her happily ever after, she would smile and say, "I stopped trying to fit into someone else's story and started writing my own. And I found someone who loved my story exactly as it was." So remember, dear listeners, that real beauty isn't about fitting into a dress size or meeting someone else's standards. Real beauty is being curious, being kind, being brave enough to be yourself, even when the world tells you to be someone else. True love doesn't see a number on a scale or a title before a name. True love sees the person, their dreams, their passions, their heart, their soul. And when you find someone who sees you like that, and you see them the same way, that's when the real fairy tale begins. And that is the kind of happily ever after worth having.